A sealed envelope, a locked royal safe, and a plot that could shatter the monarchy. While King Charles recovers in seclusion, Princess Anne makes a chilling discovery. Handwritten letters marked private music Camilla, hidden deep in his personal vault. What she finds inside. Not love notes, but a covert campaign to sideline Prince William, manipulate the media, and seize control of the crown. Camilla's scheme wasn't just bold, it was treacherous, and Anne, she doesn't stay silent. She takes charge. What follows is a royal reckoning no one saw coming until now, the unexpected discovery. On the morning of March 11th, 2025, Princess Anne was reviewing sensitive royal documents while acting as interim overseer of King Charles's private affairs during his sixth-week medical recovery. With Charles recovering quietly at Burke Hall, Anne had been granted full access to his secured communications. A royal archivist presented her with keys to a vaulted safe tucked behind music, the king's private study at St. James's Palace, and had no intention of going beyond duty until she saw the label. The safe was mostly predictable. Old financial ledgers, diplomatic briefings, music from 2022 and 2023, and a few handwritten notes from Queen Elizabeth Roman II. But near the back, wedged between two briefings marked trade and ascension planning, Anne spotted a white envelope sealed with the initials CP Camilla Parker. On its front, written in faint but unmistakable cursive, were the words, "Private Camilla." Anne hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a disturbing surprise. Music, several pages of handwritten letters not older than 6 months addressed to unidentified recipients. The documents inside were more than just correspondence. They were strategic memos littered with coded references like legacy interference, contingency PR, and containment via press. The letters were dated between October 2024 and February 2025, clearly indicating recent planning. One letter mentioned restraining Charles's contact with William during the vulnerable period. Another referred to dismantling Anne's domestic influence before spring. Anne's jaw tightened. She immediately secured the documents in a music fireproof lockbox, took high-resolution scans, and contacted her private legal advisor. Anne wasn't just alarmed, she was enraged. These weren't notes of concern or internal support. These were outlines of manipulation and control plotted from within the royal household. She knew immediately that this was more than a personal betrayal. It was a constitutional threat. Within 4 hours, Anne had locked the original letters in her personal vault at Gatcombe Park. And by midday, her network of trusted aides had begun verifying handwriting and timestamps. What began as clerical oversight was now an unfolding crisis. Princess Anne had uncovered more than just personal scheming. She had opened a window into a silent war being waged behind palace walls. Camilla's letters hinted at coordinated moves to isolate, destabilize, and ultimately displace the core of Diana's bloodline. Now, armed with evidence, Anne couldn't stay silent. Her next step wouldn't be taken alone. She needed the support and the fury of the one person Camilla had most targeted. And so Anne picked up the phone and made a call to Prince William. The contents revealed. Anne's trusted legal advisor, Sir Edward Music Moley, arrived at Gatcombe Park by March 12, 2025, just 24 hours after the letters were discovered. Together, they analyzed each document date stamped between October 2024, music, and February 2025. What Anne had initially believed to be personal musings, music turned out to be a fully mapped strategy to shift influence music within the monarchy. Camilla had clearly been corresponding with at least 3 external parties, 2 of whom had political ties, one affiliated with a media lobbying music group. One letter dated November 3, 2024, referenced influencing music public favor through repetition, coordination, and royal fatigue. Camilla's phrasing suggested she had been planning a long-term campaign to saturate media with her own initiatives while downplaying the Wales brand, a phrase she used multiple times. Another document contained bullet points titled Steps to Isolate William, with action items including limiting Charles's appearances with William, increasing Camilla's solo engagements, and using music tabloid allies to portray Catherine as fragile. The tone was calculated, not concerned. More disturbing was music, a typed draft statement labeled Project Regency dated January 8, 2025, proposing a transition of power that excluded William entirely. The language was bold. Should the king's condition deteriorate, public discussion of regency must steer toward continuity, not youth. Camilla listed her experience, age, and steady temperament as justification. The letter also hinted at compromising leverage held over 2 journalists, an unsettling sign that press manipulation was not theoretical, but already in motion. These were not passive ideas, they were operational plans. Anne knew this was no longer about rivalry or influence. It was a direct usurpation music attempt. Camilla wasn't maneuvering for soft power. She was preparing for a partial royal coup under the guise of regency, one internal memo from late December 2024 even suggested a media trial balloon. If Anne resists, label her outdated. If William resists, leak unflattering footage. At this point, Anne's mission was crystal clear. It wasn't just about warning the family. It was about protecting the integrity of the crown. Princess Anne understood the weight of what she had uncovered. This was not merely personal music betrayal. It was palace treason dressed in ink and whispers. Camilla had built a silent infrastructure of manipulation, aiming to sideline Diana's heirs and consolidate royal authority in her image. Anne couldn't allow that, but confrontation required strategy. She would need to strike at the right moment with the right allies. Her first move, confront the queen consort herself before the lies could spread any further. Anne's confrontation. On the evening of March 13, 2025, Anne arranged a private meeting with Camilla in the east wing of High Grove House. The session was scheduled under the guise of family health updates, but behind the locked doors, it became a showdown. Anne laid out 3 of the most damning letters, pointing music to passages in Camilla's unmistakable handwriting. Without raising her voice, Music Anne asked one question: "Did you write these?" According to 2 royal aides, Camilla went pale before replying, "You misunderstand." Camilla's first defense was deflection. She claimed the memos were drafts from 2023, taken out of music context and never intended for circulation. But Anne was ready. Each page had verified timestamps, updated language, and references to events from as recent as February 2025. As Camilla realized denial wouldn't work, she switched to justification, calling the letters an outline of protective music strategy and accusing Anne of blowing things out of proportion. Anne didn't flinch. "You've plotted against my family," she replied, "and you will answer for it." The confrontation escalated. Camilla reportedly shouted that Anne was jealous of her place and accused her of trying to become regent. Anne laughed, an icy, composed laugh that music cut the room in half. "You mistake service for ambition," she said. "You're confusing your fantasies with your role." Staff later confirmed hearing raised voices around 7, 10:45 p.m., followed by Camilla storming out in tears. Palace insiders described it as the most intense private confrontation since the infamous Diana-Charles showdown in 1992. Anne acted immediately. She filed a formal report with Charles's legal counsel, placed the scanned letters in Royal Archives backup, and alerted Sir James Redley, music head of constitutional security. Camilla's failure to provide a coherent music defense had sealed her fate. Anne also made it known if Camilla attempted to retaliate through the press, she would release the full letters to the public. The palace music staff began whispering that night. The Queen had finally met her match. The confrontation left no doubts. Camilla had overplayed her hand. Her denial collapsed under the weight of evidence, and Anne had made it clear there would be no more manipulation behind palace doors. But the battle wasn't over. Anne needed allies, and the two people most affected by Camilla's scheme had to be brought in. As the royal winds shifted, Anne dialed a private number, preparing for the most important meeting yet with William and Catherine. Music, the true heirs now under siege, a family torn. By March 14, 2025, Princess Anne arranged a discreet meeting with Prince William and Princess Catherine at a private annex near Sandringham Estate under the guise of a legacy planning discussion. She arrived carrying a locked diplomatic pouch. Inside were the 7 original letters and 2 additional memos Camilla had written between October 2024 and February 2025. William noticed Anne's grave expression immediately. Music Catherine, sensing the weight of what was to come, canceled her next 2 public events. The couple sat in music silence as they read through the pages. William's expression hardened, especially at the references to music neutralizing air optics and driving distance between Diana's line and the public image. Catherine's hands reportedly trembled while reading the draft labeled Windsor Reframe Strategy, in which Camilla suggested excluding them from 4 upcoming royal tours. Anne said simply, "She's not just maneuvering for position, she's rewriting the monarchy in her image." The Wales were stunned. William responded first. He ordered his personal security team to cross-check all recent communications involving Camilla's office. Catherine called her senior private secretary and instructed a full audit of the palace press office. The couple agreed on a core priority: protect their children and their future. "We can't let her damage what's meant for George," William said, referring to Prince George's place in succession, currently 3rd behind Charles and William himself. Anne nodded. "Then we must be united." That same night, the trio began organizing a multi-phase strategy. William would quietly take over public leadership roles to signal strength. Music Catherine would re-engage with youth charities. Camilla had tried to defund and meanwhile would begin briefing key palace staff, especially those with decades of loyalty to Queen Elizabeth II. As of March 15th, a new circle of trust was quietly formed, its purpose to protect the crown from within. With the future heirs now fully aware of the scheme, the mission transformed from reaction to defense. Music Anne had united the only 3 royals capable of out-maneuvering Camilla. Music, and each of them carried a different strength. Anne's discipline, William's legitimacy, Catherine's grace. But before they could act publicly, the most important piece remained: Charles Music himself. Still recovering, still unaware, and knew the revelation had to be done carefully because once the king saw what had been planned, nothing in music, the palace would remain unchanged. Charles learns the truth. On March 17, 2025, Anne traveled to Burke Hall, where Charles was spending his convalescence after his recent cardiovascular procedure. Music, the visit was announced as familial support, but Anne came armed with a secure folder. In the quiet of his study, she placed the documents before him, 12 pages in total, with 6 marked in Camilla's handwriting and the rest typed, dated, and flagged. It took King Charles Roman III nearly 45 minutes to read through the material. When he reached music, the letter dated February 9, 2025, which read, "The crown needs strategic force, not emotional weakness." Charles allegedly paused for over a minute. He asked Anne to confirm the handwriting and sources. She did. He said nothing. Then he flipped to the page where Camilla had written, "Timely succession may be the only responsible option if the public begins to lose faith." According to a source present, the king dropped the page and whispered, "She doubts me." Charles was devastated. The woman he music had defended against public outrage, married in 2005 and elevated to queen consort, had now planned a regency that would cut off his son and, worse, anticipated his mental decline as a political tactic. "I gave her everything," he muttered, pacing near the window. Anne stood silently until he asked, "Music, how far has she gone?" She handed him a separate summary of Camilla's media coordination with the Clarion Group, a firm connected to royal leaks. In late 2024, that evening, Charles ordered his legal team to begin reassessing Camilla's royal entitlements. He requested a loyalty analysis of all her aides and a restricted review of recent public expenditures linked to her name. More importantly, he told Anne, "No press, no confrontation yet. Let me decide how this ends." But behind those words, Anne Music saw something else: heartbreak. The king had finally realized that the woman he trusted had been playing her own game, one that could have toppled them all. With the king now fully informed, the family braced for impact. Yet, even as Charles Music processed betrayal in silence, the dominoes had already begun to fall. Rumors were stirring among the staff. Camilla's private secretary had gone quiet. Her closest media allies were asking fewer questions. Behind the gilded doors of the monarchy, the Queen's support base was crumbling. The network she had so carefully built was beginning to unravel, and she had no idea the storm was already upon her. Camilla's network begins to collapse. On the morning of March 18, 2025, 2 senior staffers music in Camilla's Kensington office received formal notices placing them under administrative review. The order came from Sir James, readily acting on Charles's behalf. Their digital devices were confiscated and their access to sensitive royal files revoked. Within 12 hours, one aide had already confessed to facilitating unofficial briefings with outside media. Dominoes were falling fast, and Camilla still had no clue how much had been uncovered. By March 19th, 3 journalists affiliated with Camilla's inner press circle received direct warnings from Buckingham legal counsel. One had published a favorable piece about Camilla's increased diplomatic role just 2 weeks earlier, an article now believed to be part of her image-building campaign. More alarmingly, a financial probe into the royal house budget uncovered a redirection of £78,000 toward music, private PR consultation since January 2024, none of which had been authorized through official palace channels. Even her own family wasn't safe. Her son, Tom Parker BS, was abruptly removed from a food and sustainability council linked to the royal estate. While the reason given was realignment of advisory roles, Alice insiders knew it was a message. No one close to Camilla would be spared scrutiny. 2 of her longtime charity partners also withdrew quietly, citing governance reviews. The Queen Consort's image, once polished and managed, was now viewed as a liability. By March 21st, whispers around royal corridors used a new term for her: rogue music operator. Well, once she was Her Majesty, now she was treated like a political risk. Senior footmen refused casual greetings. Invitations to speak at Commonwealth Women's Day were revoked. Camilla noticed the difference. She confronted her chief of staff, but got no answers. The power she had leveraged so precisely was now dissolving around her piece by music piece. The queen consort's empire was collapsing faster than it had risen, but even as her influence evaporated, Camilla had yet to face the one thing she feared most: public exposure. The letters were still secret, but not for long. Anne had laid the groundwork. William and Catherine stood ready, and Charles was preparing to act. Now, with Camilla weakened and isolated, the moment of reckoning was about to begin. One final confrontation would decide the fate of the Queen and the soul of the monarchy. Anne takes command. By March 22, 2025, Princess Anne was no longer acting quietly behind the scenes. With Charles's blessing, she stepped into a quasi-regency role, handling ceremonial functions and overseeing internal investigations. On her second day, she attended a state dinner with the Irish president, a role previously scheduled for Camilla. Her presence was commanding, symbolizing restoration and discipline. Senior aide music said, "The palace is calm again because Anne is in charge." The monarchy had regained its anchor. Clear's throat. Anne's first order was a full audit of all initiatives Camilla had touched in the last 12 months. By March 25th, she had uncovered 2 unauthorized press releases. Music, including one that misrepresented William's role in a 2024 diplomatic mission to Canada. Anne corrected the record and reassigned public communications to William and Catherine's press team. Aides were instructed to review all public-facing content for accuracy. The Crown would no longer speak with Camilla's voice. Anne also enacted strict safeguards around Charles's daily calendar and correspondence. Every external communication now required dual approval from Music Anne's office and a vetted legal advisor. Her team restored access protocols last revised in 2016, eliminating Camilla-era loopholes. Royal security under Commander Lionel Heath increased surveillance of internal IT traffic. Camilla's digital activity, over 4,000 emails between 2023 and early 2025, was quarantined for review. By the end of the week, Anne gave a rare public address at a Buckingham charity gala, speaking on service over ambition. Her praise of those who placed duty above title was unmistakably pointed. Charles, absent from the gala due to recovery, issued a statement echoing Anne's tone. Internally, a line had been drawn. Camilla's era was over, and the music palace had a new, uncompromising steward. As Anne fortified the palace from within, the public outside had begun to sense the shift. Camilla's absence was no longer unexplained. It was unavoidable. Leaks about the letters, staff reviews, and Anne's quiet takeover began to ripple through headlines. But the final blow wasn't internal protocol or royal reshuffling. It was the court of public opinion, and once the people began speaking, no crown could protect the one who had lost their trust. The public reacts. By March 28, 2025, whispers turned to headlines, Queen exposed, and letters of betrayal dominated the front pages of the Mirror, the Times, and even global outlets like Leand and New York Post. The public now knew Camilla had plotted to isolate William, manipulate the media, and prepare for a regency that excluded the king's own bloodline. Social media exploded. #music, Queen of Control, and #Anne for the crown trended worldwide within hours. Public sentiment shifted dramatically. A poll conducted by Ipsos UK on March 30th showed Camilla's favorability had plummeted to just 18%, music down from 41% in January. Conversely, Anne's approval rating soared to 74%, the highest for any royal since Princess Diana in 1996. Commentators on BBC Newsite referred to Camilla as a damaged figure beyond repair. charity leaders began declining Camilla's past patronages, signaling complete withdrawal. In Liverpool, Camilla's appearance at a library unveiling was met with boos and protest signs reading, "Not my queen." By April 2nd, her remaining spring engagements were postponed indefinitely. According to the palace, rumors spread that she was voluntarily stepping back, but insiders confirmed she had been formally sidelined by Charles. Even foreign media began to speculate whether a monarchical divorce was quietly in progress. Public support for William, Catherine, and Anne unified into a movement. Archival clips of Princess Diana's Panorama interview, 1995, resurfaced, especially her warnings about betrayal within the royal circle. The public saw Diana's words as prophecy and her son as the rightful heir. In forums and editorials, one quote reigned, "Diana warned us and saved us." With Camilla stripped of public goodwill and her grip on palace influence broken, the past came roaring back to vindicate Diana's legacy. William and Catherine didn't need to speak. People spoke for them, but inside palace walls, the final chapter had already begun. Charles, now clear-eyed and resolute, was ready to end Camilla's chapter permanently. It was time to close the door she had forced open and rewrite the line of succession with those who never betrayed it. Diana's voice echoes through time. In early April 2025, producers at BBC Archives began re-airing Diana's most iconic interviews. One clip from 1995 struck a nerve. "There are people in this family who will stop at nothing to gain control." Public forums, TikTok music tributes, and YouTube documentaries used this line to frame Camilla's exposed plot. Even Netflix UK updated its royal docu-series to include the letter scandal, drawing 12 million views in 72 hours. In London's Kensington Gardens, mourners began leaving flowers at Diana's statue once more, many with notes saying, "You were right." A mural appeared near Hyde Park, showing Diana standing protectively between William and Anne, with Camilla depicted in shadow. Media outlets coined it the People's Shield. William, though avoiding direct comment, shared a black and white photo of Diana with the caption, "Guided by your light." The post received over 3 million likes in 12 hours. Anne, too, invoked Diana during a speech on April 4th at the Royal College of Defense Studies. "My sister," and Law saw clearly what we all struggled to admit. Her strength music laid the foundation for this correction. It was the closest the palace had come to publicly acknowledging Diana's warnings. The crowd gave Anne a standing ovation lasting 2 minutes. The speech was replayed on BBC One and Sky News that night. Inside the palace, Charles reportedly spent several days revisiting Diana's letters from the 1990s, stored privately since her death. In 1997, staff noticed his growing distance from Camilla, with one aide saying, "He walks music the corridors she once ruled, but now alone." The ghost of Diana wasn't haunting the monarchy. It was healing it. As Diana's truth re-emerged, Camilla's undoing was complete. Music not by force, but by revelation. The crown had remembered its heart. But this wasn't just about removal. It was about renewal, and for that, Charles, Anne, William, and Catherine had one final step to take, rebalancing the monarchy around trust, heritage, and unity. The Queen Consort was gone. The new royal era was ready to rise. A new order rises. On April 8, 2025, Music King Charles Roman III issued a sealed internal directive. Camilla would no longer attend royal engagements or act as Queen Consort. Though not a public decree, it marked a permanent change. Her royal duties were officially suspended and her personal staff reassigned to other departments. The palace cited restructuring during His Majesty's recovery, but every royal insider knew the truth. Camilla had been exiled from power. Anne was elevated to senior executive royal status, effectively Music a de facto regent, entrusted with daily operations and constitutional oversight. By mid-April, she had re-established a chain of command modeled after the structure used during Queen Elizabeth II's final decade, 2010 to 2020. William and Catherine, meanwhile, were installed as heads of youth and diplomatic engagement, signaling their rise as the monarchy's future. Even Charles's public addresses began echoing their messaging. In a symbolic act, Camilla's name was removed from two major royal planning committees, Music, the Royal Future Panel, and the Commonwealth Council. Her private estate in Norfolk became her permanent residence. Music extended rest, the palace called it, but even footmen knew this was exile. Camilla's influence was gone, her circle dissolved. The woman who once positioned herself at the center of royal reinvention had been ousted by truth, loyalty, and legacy. By April 20th, 2025, William, Catherine, and Anne stood on the balcony of Buckingham Palace, waving to a roaring crowd of over 35,000. The monarchy, once teetering under betrayal, now stood firm on pillars Diana would have been proud of. A new royal order had risen, not one of strategy, but of service, and behind it all, Princess Royal's quiet resolve had become a storm of redemption. The monarchy has weathered scandals, betrayals, music, and broken vows, but rarely one from within. Camilla's plot, music concealed in secret letters and whispered strategy, was designed to tighten her grip on royal influence while isolating Diana's legacy. But it was Princess Anne, the silent music sentinel of royal duty, who broke the silence and set things right. Her discovery didn't just expose Camilla, it reunited the core of the crown. In a moment of crisis, Anne, William, and Catherine formed a quiet alliance that prioritized loyalty, honor, and the future of the monarchy. Their unity reminded the world that while titles can be inherited, trust must be earned and protected fiercely. King Charles, betrayed at his most vulnerable, chose clarity over emotion. His decision to distance Camilla was not personal, it was constitutional. The palace's inner workings were rebuilt from the inside out with Anne leading investigations, Catherine taking on renewed public visibility, and William emerging as the next era's rightful pillar. And in the hearts of the people, one voice echoed louder than ever. Diana's, her warnings, her strength, and her legacy had not faded. They had only been waiting for justice, waiting for a moment like this. Camilla now sits in silence, her name erased from future royal planning. Meanwhile, Anne, William, and Catherine stand united, not in scandal, but in service. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a reset, a reckoning, and the rise of a new royal order. Because in the end, the crown doesn't bend to ambition. It answers music to truth, and this time, truth had a champion. Her name was Princess Anne.